Nigel Farage calling me an effing it hurts and it makes me angry.
Rishi Sunak thinks reform has a culture problem. In the last few moments, Nigel Farage has hit back.
He was acting from the very start. This is a total and utter set-up.
Also tonight, Keir Starmer clashes with a female voter.
You need to think about 51% of the population who are sick of the absolute twaddle that comes out of your mouth when we ask these questions.
Yeah, Jane.
So does Labour have a woman problem? Plus, is it time for Joe to go?
Everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
The Telegraph's Tim Stanley reacts to a disastrous debate for the Democrats. And
Does anybody seriously think that not processing the claims when now record numbers are coming across the channel is operating as a deterrent?
Keir Starmer intends to clear the asylum backlog. Do the Tories have any right to say Labour will make the migrant crisis worse? I'll have the first of tomorrow's front pages with my press pack, former BBC political editor John Sargent, ex-Apprentice star Joanna Charjou, and also political commentator Alex Armstrong. Oh, and what happens next here? Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Does Labour have a woman problem? That's next.
Good evening. It's 2 minutes past 9. I'm Cameron Walker here in the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister says the leader of Reform UK has questions to answer after a video emerged of a campaigner making racist comments. Andrew Parker was seen making a series of offensive remarks about Rishi Sunak. He's now apologised, but insists he was goaded into making them. Rishi Sunak says it's part of a broader pattern of behaviour. A warning: the following clip does contain some offensive language.
When my two daughters have to see and hear Reform people who campaign for Nigel Farage calling me an effing it hurts and it makes me angry, and I think he has some questions to answer. When you see Reform candidates and campaigners seemingly using racist and misogynistic language and opinions, seemingly without challenge, I think it tells you something about the culture within the Reform Party. Our politics and country is better than that. It's my duty to call out this corrosive and divisive behaviour.
Well, Nigel Farage said earlier that the comments have no place in the party, and tonight has again described the secretly recorded video as a set-up. But responding to Mr Farage's claims, a Channel 4 spokesperson said they strongly stand by what they called rigorous and duly impartial journalism, which they say speaks for itself. In the US now, and President Joe Biden says he intends to win the election in his first public event since his struggle during the first televised debate last night. He's been speaking in the last couple of hours at a rally in North Carolina, where Democrats are hoping to win the state back from Republicans this November. He claimed America itself is at stake and accused former US President Donald Trump of repeatedly lying, and says he has the morals of an alley cat. After his own shaky performance during the debate last night, President Biden directly addressed the limits of his old age.
I don't walk as easy as I used to. I don't speak as smoothly as I used to. I don't debate as well as I used to. But I know what I do know. I know how to tell the truth. I know right from wrong. And I know how to do this job. I know how to get things done. And I know, like millions of Americans know, when you get knocked down, you get back up.
And just to say, former President Trump is currently speaking in Virginia. We'll have more on him in our next bulletin. Now, a security guard accused of hatching a plan to kidnap, rape and murder the TV presenter Holly Willoughby has been giving evidence in court.
You're under arrest on suspicion of conspiracy to kidnap. You do not have to say anything. What are you talking about?
Gavin Plum told Chelmsford Crown Court he's heartbroken, disgusted and shocked that his online chats about the alleged plot have come out, but claims it was just a fantasy. Plum from Harlow in Essex denies soliciting murder, incitement to rape and incitement to kidnap. The trial continues. The Met Police say a total of 27 Just Stop Oil supporters have been arrested in a coordinated raid after the group threatened to disrupt summer holidays. 4 people were arrested on Tuesday after being identified at Gatwick Airport and have since been released on bail. It also comes after 6 members of the group, some described as being key organisers, were arrested in Hackney and East London last night. Well, those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, I'm Cameron Walker. More in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Now, Sir Keir Starmer and Labour are struggling to shake the accusation the party's position on trans rights could put women and girls at risk. Listen to Jane from London taking Mr Starmer to task on single-sex spaces during a radio phone-in earlier today.
Can you say now that you will not allow men, biological men, under any guise to come into women's safe spaces?
We will, of course, protect...
Can you say that? You need to think about 51% of the population who are sick of the absolute twaddle that comes out of your mouth when we ask these questions.
Yeah, Jane, let me just... firstly, we will protect women's spaces. That is my commitment. But just hear me out. There are some people who do not identify with the gender that they are born into. They're often traumatised by that. There has been a process in place.
51% of the population don't care.
And the Shadow Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, didn't fare much better with a similar question.
Trans woman with a penis would use which lavatory?
Well, look, I think it's important that all people feel safe and have dignity and
No, but she needs to go to the lavatory. Which one does she use?
But I think there are a range of options that would...
Well, she hasn't got a range of options, respectfully. She's got a door with a woman on it. She's got a door with a bloke on it. Which one does she go in, Bridget Phillipson?
I would want people to treat one another with respect.
She needs to use the lavatory, Shadow Secretary of State. Which one is she to use?
I mean, seriously, those performances aren't likely to fill 51% of the electorate with much confidence. And Shadow Health Secretary Wes Streeting has admitted the party has a lot of work to gain back women's trust. But outspoken backbencher Dawn Butler immediately undermined Mr Streeting's conciliatory tone by siding with actor David Tennant when he told Kebby Badenoch to shut up over her views on trans rights. So with Sir Keir Starmer and Phillipson unable to give us a straight answer and the party clearly divided on trans issues, can Labour be trusted to protect women and girls? Right, before I go to my panel, let me bring in former Labour Minister Ivor Kaplan. Ivor, seriously, it's a very simple question. Why are these people struggling with very, very simple questions? It's binary, male, female. It's not that difficult. Does Labour have a woman problem?
In my view, Nana, no, it doesn't have a women problem. We have some of the best women in the shadow cabinet right now, and I hope that in 10 days' time that they will be in the cabinet. So that's the first thing to say. The second thing is this has always been a difficult issue for political parties. We've seen what the Tories have done over the last 2 years, where they've just been very happy to effectively, bring about a sort of toxic area around those who are trans and who want to do something.
But Ivor, why is it...
At the same time... Sorry, Nana, go on.
But I don't understand. It's not really toxic asking simple questions about the fact that Labour would like to make it easier for people to transition, which could put women and girls at risk. We saw what happened with Nicola Sturgeon. Isla Bryson was the exact example of why this could be difficult and dangerous for women. Not all trans people are like that. We've known this for years. In fact, most trans people will say that there hasn't really been an issue until the last few years, where it's become a question. Why is it so difficult for these people to answer simple questions?
No, I think you're absolutely right about that. I can't answer all of what you're saying there, but what I do know is that in the number of trans people, all they want to be able to do is to be part of both their time in whatever they are doing, and also in the more general thing around trans issues. In Brighton, we have a trans pride coming up in 3 weeks' time, which is likely to be the biggest that's ever been held in the UK for trans people. These are important things, and it doesn't need to be where people actually take action against people, and that's one of the issues. And I think that when and if Labour get into power next week, then I think we will be able to deal with this in a right and proper way, in exactly the same way that we had to do this in 1997 in relation to gay men and lesbians. So this is not unusual for us to be in this position. It's just about what can we do to make sure we get this right and that we support trans people across the United Kingdom.
Well, listen, everybody, I should imagine, that the majority of people want support for trans people, but it cannot be at the expense of women, and I think that is the problem we're having here, and we are 51% of the electorate. So listening to Labour shadow ministers unable to answer very simple questions, and to Keir Starmer getting confused as to how many women have a penis, I think that is an issue. I mean, he's now agreed with Tony Blair that a man has a penis and a woman has a vagina, but it took him a long time to come to terms with that, and I think a lot of people are questioning why it's taken these people so long. Look, how will the Labour Party, in terms of that, then you said, how will they reassure women that they have their best interests at heart?
There's two areas. Obviously, there's the professional sport issue, which is a separate one, and then you've got the issues that we're dealing with right now about what happens on a daily basis in terms of trans people. I am absolutely confident, Nana, that if we are in government come Friday, then we will do our best to make sure that we can get this right for the longer term. There's been no attempt by the Conservative Party to try and get it right at any stage in the last few years, and it's going to fall to the Labour Party to try and get this right and to make sure that trans people have all the rights that they want to have in various communities around the United Kingdom. So we need to get this right, and we need to do it as quickly as possible. And I am confident that if we are in government come Friday, then that will be one of the things that will be on the list to be done.
All right, Ivor, thank you very much. I don't know why people are so confused with it. It's quite simple. A man is a man, a woman is a woman. You cannot change sex. That's what I think. Most people think the same thing. Ivor Caplins, thank you very much. Right, let's get the thoughts of my panel. Former BBC Chief Political Correspondent John Sargent, former Apprentice star Joanna Jarju, and political commentator Alex Armstrong. Let's see what they have to think about this. You know, it seems pretty binary. It seems pretty straightforward to me. Slightly got the walk wrong. It wasn't my fault, was it? That wasn't my fault. But it does seem a bit odd that these people are struggling with something so simple as to male and female anatomy and who has what. John Sargent, what do you make of this becoming such a big political hot potato?
No, I think it's reducing as a hot potato. People are gradually coming around to where they were a few years ago, which is that men are men, women are women, and some people, sad people often, are worried about their gender, you know. But there are all sorts of things you can't change very much. And when it comes back to the arguments about sport or about private places or going to the loo and all the rest of it, there's not a great deal you can do. And comparisons with the gay campaign, which was highly successful and worked very well, has not helped the people in these areas because they keep constantly thinking it's an analogous. It's not at all. There are vast numbers of people are gay. Vast numbers of people who are gay have worked out how they want to live and whether that's possible within the rest of the society. And the answer is it can be, and they have done. it's not so easy with a very small number of people who genuinely are transgender. Now, obviously, we've all got sympathy for them. It's very difficult for many of them. But the idea that they can simply barge into women's toilets and it's all going to be all right. No, it'd be all right for them, but not for the women involved, not for many of the women involved. And you can't really get round that. There is, as Nick Ferrari was saying, you can't get round the fact male, female toilets, that's it.
Well, that should be it. You'd think it would be, but they're having such trouble with it. Joanna Jarju, what do you make of this? Because it just seems so absurd that we are where we are.
Not really. I think it's a transition. You know, it's something that's new, and I think for any kind of movement in society, it takes years and years and years. And I actually think that I quite respect the Labour Party for pacing themselves when it comes to this, rather than just picking a camp when it comes to something that's to do with ideology and saying this is this and that's that. When we know that there's certain things that have progressed, even after the Cass report, for example, they'd said certain things and basically jumped the gun and then had to retract after the Cass report. So what they need to do is get into a position where they're in power, do more reports, really do the research, and then be able to make a
do the research on what, though? A woman has a vagina, a man has a penis. Why? Look, OK, so I hear you. It took them time. It took Keir Starmer almost 2 years to acknowledge that women do not have penises. And, in fact, he came out with 99.9% of women don't have penises, which meant that 1 in 1,000 do. Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this seems to be a problem across the whole Labour Party, though. I mean, we've got David Lammy coming out the other day saying he thinks that trans women can grow a cervix, so to speak, that they can have procedures to insert a cervix into them. It's just not biological sense. What's happened to the Labour Party? I mean, the only time Keir changed his mind is when Tony Blair went on, I think it was LBC or something, and said, oh, no, it's pretty straightforward. I'm of the church that a man has a penis and a woman has a vagina. Then Keir Starmer goes, that's right, yes, I agree with that. That's my policy too. They don't know what they're talking about. This is utter nonsense. And the reality is, Nana, is that they either don't have a plan to address this, which is why they can't answer it, or they do have a plan and don't want the public to know what the plan is.
The difference is that they're here to govern everybody. And when it comes to trans hate crime, that's gone up 11% in the last year. So they have to acknowledge that. And the fact that Keir Starmer was somebody who sat with Brianna Jai's mum, did all of these consultations, how awful would it be for him to then come out and say something completely different or just have a blanket view? And when I talk about, the reports and research and things like that, is that whenever they do eventually make a really concrete decision that they legislate on, they have to be able to say, we have come to this really tough decision that trans women are banned from here because of this.
How is this tough in any way, shape or form? We know men are men and women are women. If you're trans, you're sure that 0.1% of people, maybe even less than that, why does the entire population of this country need to pander to a small group of people? Can't they find the solutions at the end of the day? Why is it down to government again to legislate?
I think also the other problem is you say that trans hate crimes have gone up. Yes, because people have been very annoyed by the way that the trans campaign and campaigners have overreached themselves. That's all. I mean, they've gone too far. They've laid down laws which, in fact, are really upsetting people. Most people just carry on, get on with their ordinary lives. They're genuinely not affected by this. But when they are, and if they're constantly reminded of it, don't be surprised if people get angry and react.
Well, it's not just that, though, let's be honest here. It's in sport, where women are being compromised because of this. And
they've settled it in sport.
Well, they have, but not... No.
Most of the main sports, it has been settled.
Yeah, but not fully, and that's why it's so ridiculous. I mean, Joanna, surely you can't think that it's OK for men to go against women in sort of contact sports. I mean, that hasn't been totally settled. People are still acting as though that's perfectly OK. Women are going to get harmed.
I mean, this is the thing. I almost feel as if, and this is why so much research has to be done on if you've transitioned, for example, how much, testosterone, for example, do you still have? Do you have a massive, and then you have people, for example, who are intersex. You've got that sprinter as well who maybe has more testosterone.
That is a medical condition. So intersex is a medical condition. Just because somebody is born intersex doesn't mean there's a new type of human. We know what it means is that it's something that's gone wrong. Like if you had somebody who's born with one leg, it doesn't mean that there's a new kind of human, there's a one-legged human. Okay. It means that there's something that's gone wrong. So why are we almost pandering to this as though there's some sort of new thing that's out there? Trans has existed since the beginning. We know that.
I'll tell you where I stand, right? So when it comes to the sports stuff, I'm not so, you know, should they, shouldn't they? It's not something that keeps me up at night. What I actually think is important is about the toilets thing. So, you know, we've had, for example, was it Isla Bryson in Scotland who raped 2 women and then decided to transition. That was 2019. He or she was charged, depending on what, you know, they
we're going to come back to this
with.
because I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
But we've got to go for the break. But Nicola Sturgeon, I think, called anybody who complained about that racist, didn't she? And things like that.
Yeah.
So, to be honest, listen, we've gone over already. Look, what a great panel. Listen, stay with me, still to come. Was ITV News presenter wrong to make the point that there aren't many white male anchors left? Ken Hines goes head-to-head with former aide to Margaret Thatcher, Niall Gardner. But before that, Joe Biden sends shockwaves around the world with this alarming performance.
Everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
I can't look. The Telegraph's Tim Stanley called it not a debate, but a medical emergency. He joins me live next. I'll also get Tim's reaction to the reform racism row after Rishi Sunak hit back. Stay tuned.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Wiltshire police have arrested 2 people after they sprayed orange paint on Stonehenge.
Well, Just Stop Oil have shared a video saying it's to get the incoming government to sign up to a legally binding treaty to phase out fossil fuels by 2030. Of course, Stonehenge famously associated with oil, gas. I think the 5,000-year-old Neolithic Britons were prolific users of the internal combustion engine, and they drilled for lots of oil, so it makes perfect sense, of course.
Yes, we're going to be joined by Jill Taylor, a spokesperson from Just Stop Oil. Jill, thank you very much indeed. What on earth is this all about? This is just criminal activity under the guise of some kind of activism.
No, that paint will be washed off really easily. So it's not long-lasting damage at all, unlike the damage that is being done now by the fossil fuel industry and just keeping burning fossil fuels, putting more CO2 into the atmosphere. You're right, the Neolithic people were not prolific users of fossil fuels. They did not cause the kind of damage that we're causing now. That's all been within since the Industrial Revolution in the 150 years.
So because
this is when the damage has been done.
So because this stuff can be washed off, ergo there's no issue here. Well, Stonehenge aren't particularly happy about this. They've come out on their social media page and they say Stonehenge is protected by the Ancient Monuments Act and it is a criminal offence to damage the stones. There are also multiple rare lichen species growing on the stones that are also protected. So this isn't good for nature, is it?
I think you're getting things so out of perspective here. What isn't good for nature is the damage we're doing now, and what's not good for nature globally is not good for you, it's not good for me, and it's not good for the people watching this programme.
The People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel. Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates.
You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
On election night, we are throwing a party.
The GB News Election Night Watch Party will be live from Essex and you are all invited.
On air from 10 o'clock, we'll have familiar faces from across the channel, entertainment and lots more stuff as we keep our eye on all the results as they come flying in.
If you want to join our live Election Night Watch Party audience, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com/election party.
Good evening, 25 minutes after 9 o'clock. This is Patrick Christys tonight with me, Nana Acquare, only on GB News. Now, coming up, should ITV News presenter Tom Bradby be censored by the broadcaster for saying that there aren't many white male anchors left? But over in the US, last night's debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump has plunged the Democrat Party into crisis after Biden's desperate performance. Let's have a look at some of his worst moments.
Eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden.
The total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
Yeah, and after that performance, Democrats are reportedly pressuring Biden to quit and make way for a better candidate. But the president came out fighting at a rally earlier tonight.
I don't walk as easy as I used to. I don't speak as smoothly as I used to. I don't debate as well as I used to. But I know what I do know. I know how to tell the truth. I know right from wrong. And I know how to do this job. I know how to get things done. And I know, like millions of Americans know, when you get knocked down, you get back up.
I think maybe the meds are wearing off or on or whatever. But listen, right now, Donald Trump is actually speaking at a rally in America. So what do you think? I mean, Donald Trump, I love that one-liner that he came out with where he said, I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. I mean, that was some put down. But he's speaking right now live at a rally. So what do you think? Should Biden step aside? I'm joined now by the columnist and sketch writer for The Telegraph, Tim Stanley. Tim, you were up all night watching the debate for The Telegraph. What did you make of it?
It was extraordinary, wasn't it? He looked like an animated corpse. And one didn't just feel frightened for the free world, one felt really very sorry for him. You've got to remember, this debate was intended to be a trap for Donald Trump. The plan was to debate Trump much earlier than one would normally do in order to remind the voters of how outrageous and hyperbolic Trump can be, to sort of re-irritate the American public into voting against him in November. Well, that completely backfired, because not just because Joe Biden was so weak, so aged and so frail, but also because Donald Trump was surprisingly well disciplined, and he benefited from the rules on microphones. The microphones were kept off when Trump wasn't supposed to be talking. So that meant that his whole performance seemed much more disciplined. And everyone's showing the clip, as you did, where Trump said, I don't know what he just said, and I don't think he does either. Everybody's showing that clip. But actually, that's the only time that Trump directly referenced Biden's bad performance. It's not just we're seeing a decaying Biden, we're seeing a new Trump here, a much more disciplined Trump. And it was a sensible move because Biden's age spoke for itself. Trump did not have to point it out.
Well, of course, they weren't allowed any notes or any props or anything as well. That was obviously part of the rules. But some people argue that this was actually a way of the Democrats kind of testing Joe Biden. This is why they had it so early, so then they could determine whether they need to change the candidate and would potentially still have time to do that. Otherwise, any longer, and it would be too late.
This is the conspiracy theory. Have the debate so that Joe, who refuses to step off the ticket, will realize he did really badly, will be embarrassed, and will gracefully step down and release his delegates. Well, 24 hours later, it looks like that's not going to happen. Joe Biden came out fighting with his rally. Barack Obama has endorsed him on Twitter. And Democrats who were privately saying he's got to go, the donors will pull out, are now publicly making statements of support. You've got to remember, it's very difficult to get rid of Joe Biden at this point. The only way to do it is for him to voluntarily resign from the nomination and say, I won't accept it. Even if he did that, that would lead not to the promotion of Kamala Harris. She doesn't automatically take the spot. It doesn't mean there's a coronation of a preferred candidate. It means an open convention. And the party elites are as nervous about that, about what could happen at an open convention, as they're nervous about Biden being renominated. always assume the worst when it comes to political decision-making. Look at our own country. Look at the mistakes Rishi Sunak has made. There's no conspiracy there. I think Biden really believes he should run again. His wife thinks he should run again. And I suspect the Democrats just don't have the wit to replace him with someone else.
Well, it's totally embarrassing, really. It was shameful. And actually, these two hosts had form on being nasty about Trump, so you would have expected them to sort of maybe try and do a bit of Trump bashing, but that just didn't happen. Now, back here in the UK, we've got Nigel Farage with Reform UK. Now, they're at the centre of a racism storm after a party volunteer was filmed using an offensive racial slur to describe Rishi Sunak. And Rishi Sunak has responded to the comments, and this is what he said earlier today.
When my two daughters have to see and hear Reform people who campaign for Nigel Farage calling me an effing, it hurts and it makes me angry, and I think he has some questions to answer. When you see Reform candidates and campaigners seemingly using racist and misogynistic language and opinions, seemingly without challenge, I think it tells you something about the culture within the Reform Party. Our politics.
So, Tim, do you think, is Rishi right that Reform has a deep-rooted culture issue?
Well, look, Rishi Sunak is right to be angry and disgusted, but I think the Reform hierarchy is angry and disgusted about this as well, because it's really let their party down. I said when Nigel threw himself in and I went to the big rally at Clacton, I said at the time, Reform is going to have a racism problem, because when you are a party that is motivated by sovereignty issues, self-government issues, let's call it what it is, a kind of a soft nationalism, you attract racists and bigots. You just do. And Reform did not have the time to winnow those people out. But I don't think the party is institutionally racist. I certainly don't think that. I don't think it's motivated by those issues at all. And they are very frustrated and distressed that this is happening. And let's face it, the other parties have been looking for something to hit Reform on. The first thing was Ukraine, and now it's going to be the race issue. And it's possibly the thing which is going to put a ceiling on their support. But there is no way that they want this to be happening. I think it is going to be something which is possibly going to hurt them on Thursday.
Mm-hmm. And, of course, Nigel Farage openly castigated it as abhorrent and racist and unacceptable, which everybody else has done. And actually, some of the other parties had similar issues, like the far left, attracted to the far left, as Nigel pointed out, and so on and so forth.
Labour has had anti-Semitism. Tory MPs have been expelled for bigotry. They've been expelled for accusations of rape. They've been expelled for accusations of corruption. This happens in all parties. I'm afraid politics attracts nasty people. The difference is that Reform is a start-up, and it just hasn't had the time to weed people out.
Well, maybe that was probably part of Rishi Sunak's plan to sort of call a quick election like that for reasons like that. Tim Stanley, we're running out of time. Really good to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining me. Well, listen, don't forget, GB News will be live in Essex on election night as Michelle Dewberry and Patrick Christys host our exclusive coverage as the polls draw to a close. So if you want to be part of the live studio audience in Essex and with Patrick and Michelle Dewberry, then apply now. Either you can scan the QR code that you see on the screen or visit gbnews.com/election night. Coming up, Keir Starmer has confirmed that illegal migrants can apply for asylum under Labour on the same day that the backlog is predicted to reach 90,000 by the end of the year. So can the country afford to abandon the Rwanda plan? I'll speak to former UKIP leader Henry Bolton. But up next, ITV presenter Tom Bradbury said there aren't many white male anchors left, and his woke colleagues apparently want him to be censored. So should he be reprimanded? Ken Hines goes head-to-head with former aide to Margaret Thatcher, Niall Gardner. Stay tuned.
Time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Good evening to you. Tomorrow, bit of a three-way split with our weather. Bright and breezy across Scotland with a few showers, mostly fine and sunny across East Anglia and the southeast. But in between, this weather system is creeping towards us. Not a particularly potent one, but it will bring cloud and some outbreaks of rain. That's starting to move across the Republic of Ireland at the moment and spreading towards Wales and southern parts of Northern Ireland by dawn. Still a few showers across the far north and west of Scotland. Still quite breezy here as well, but elsewhere the wind's pretty light with some clearer skies. Temperatures will dip down to single figures, but actually Turning quite cloudy here, but that will keep the cloudy temperatures up across Wales and northwest England through the early hours. The cloud will increase a little bit across southwest England too, so a grey start here for some, maybe the odd shower. But for much of East Anglia and the southeast, fine and sunny, and for a good part of Scotland and Northern Ireland, certainly the north of Northern Ireland, a fine start to Saturday. Some decent spells of sunshine. Still quite breezy across the far north, and still plenty of showers packing in across Caithness, Sutherland, the Western Isles and the Northern Isles. They'll keep going for much of the day, but a good chunk of Scotland will be dry. This cloud and rain, though, likely to stick around. Not much rain, I suspect, getting to the east of the Pennines, but still predominantly cloudy here. Dull and damp on some of those coasts across northwest England, north and west Wales throughout. But brighter skies further south and with a bit of sunshine. 25 degrees is possible across the southeast. Scotland and Northern Ireland in the high teens, but with a bit of sunshine. It shouldn't feel too bad because the winds will be lighter tomorrow compared to today. Mostly fairly light winds on Sunday as well. Some rain will head back towards Shetland. Could start quite grey in the south with 1 or 2 showers here. Quite a bit of cloud on Sunday, but I'm still optimistic that many places will see some sunny spells. And we've lost the heat from earlier in the week. Temperatures at or a touch below average.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel. I'm Camilla Tominey. This is GB News, Britain's election channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. GB News, Britain's election channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Ellie Costello, and thank you so much for joining us here on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening. If you just tuned in, welcome on board. This is GB News. We are Britain's election channel. This is Patrick Christys tonight with me, Nana Acquia. Coming up, are the Tories right that a Labour government would make the migrant crisis worse? But first, should ITV News presenter Tom Bradby be censored for his comment about white male anchors? It's time now to go head-to-head. Yes, ITV News presenter Tom Bradby is under fire for comments that he made in a recent interview with the Radio Times when asked how he felt about being seen as pale, male and stale in the industry. Bradby said, "There aren't many white male anchors left, dare I say, so I feel a bit less nervous about that than possibly I should." 3 colleagues have taken offence and wrote to ITN's ethnic minority network, Empower, to ask that he be censored. The network has said, "We explained that whilst there is enormous respect for Tom, his comments have had an adverse impact on members, given what they implied about diversity at ITN and within the industry, and given how they have been jumped on by some with a divisive culture war agenda." And, of course, this follows allegations in March that ITV's Commissioner Nicola Lloyd told industry execs that the broadcaster does not want white men as talent. So tonight I'm asking, should ITV News presenter Tom Bradby be censored for his comment about white male anchors? Well, join him. Let me know your thoughts as ever. Head to gbnews.com/yoursay or tweet me GBNews at GBNews. And whilst you're there, why not vote in our poll? And I'll bring you those results in a few minutes. But first, we're going head-to-head. Former chair of Haringey Independent Stop and Search Monitoring Group, Ken Hines, also former aide to Margaret Thatcher, Niall Gardner. Right, I'm going to start with you, Noel Gardner. All right, he made the comments that there aren't many white male anchors left. In fact, he thought he was the only one. He's actually factually incorrect because our very own Stephen Dixon will be hosting our election coverage with Camilla Tominey. But, you know, what was the point out of order?
Nana, thanks very much for having me on the show today. And I think it's really ridiculous that Tom Bradby is under fire within ITV from some clearly very sensitive sort of woke snowflake individuals within the ITV corporation complaining about his remarks. He was simply just responding to a question from the Radio Times. I don't think he meant any kind of offence whatsoever. And I do think that, you know, the left try to weaponize these issues all the time when we shouldn't really be considering the color of someone's skin at all for news presenting. It shouldn't matter whatsoever. But for the left, of course, they try to turn these situations into some kind of crisis. And I think the attacks on Tom Bradby, who's a very nice fellow, and I think has done an outstanding job for many years at ITV, I think these attacks are completely out of order. And I think that it's a sort of whining, whinging from the woke left that you get all the time. And I don't think he should be censored here for simply making a few remarks to, I think it's the Radio Times. I don't think he said anything remotely controversial here. And you know, these lefties are always complaining constantly, calling for people to be sacked and so on. I think it's gone too far.
But it seems like the woke has kind of reversed on itself and is now biting its own tail. Ken Hines, is there something wrong with what he said? It was almost factually correct.
Well, what it demonstrates to me, first of all, at a very minimum, it was clumsy. At most, it showed that what he's got is his wounded ego needs to have some work done on himself. He needs to reflect, because diversity should be welcome. Because for far too long, the industry has had a monopoly of predominantly white men at anchor. And as I said, it's very important for people like myself, from my background, to see people like ourselves in those anchor spots.
Yeah, but Ken,
and I welcome yourself, Nana, being on this platform.
Well, I'm here because I'm good, not because I'm black.
I know, and it gives me hope.
But hang on, if it was said the other way round, so if I had said, oh, there aren't many black female anchors, that might have been welcomed. That comment might have been welcomed. People might have observed it and said, that's terrible. Let's get some more black females in. And so the colour may have been relevant. So why is it such a terrible thing for him to say? Why is he being attacked, Ken? Just why has he been attacked in this way?
Well, I won't put it as bad as that as being, I would say it's insensitive. I would say on the scheme of things, it doesn't warrant any censorship on that. But what it does warrant is a degree of reflection by Tom. Because again, you know, maybe, as I said, he's from a privileged platform. And he doesn't take change very easily. He doesn't embrace it. And he needs to look and see where that wounded self is coming from, or that negative part of him is still exhibiting that privilege tone that he gives out.
Obviously he's not here to defend himself, but Niall, do you think Ken has some sort of point that perhaps Tom is extremely privileged and is wounded slightly and is slightly worried that he said he should be worried, but he's not? What do you think?
No, I think those attacks are completely unwarranted, actually. And, you know, this idea that someone like Tom Bradby should engage in self-criticism sounds like sort of communist stuff from the Chairman Mao era, actually. I mean, it just sounds utterly ludicrous in this day and age. And I think this whole sort of DEI, you know, diversity, equity, inclusion drive, which is so powerful, of course, in the United States right now. It's moving into the UK. It's very politically motivated, and I think it goes against, you know, the view that, you know, we should judge people really by their character, by their talent, on merit, not upon the colour of someone's skin or whether they're male or female. And I think the left tries to really advance a very dangerous kind of identity politics in every sphere of society. And I think that's fundamentally removed from the original vision of Martin Luther King Jr., for example, who fought against exactly this. And I do think that, the left try to weaponize issues of race all the time for political reasons. And I don't think that, Tom Bradby in any way here is expressing remotely some kind of racist point of view, or that he should apologize or engage in self-criticism. I do think that, once again, this is an example of the left really advancing sort of far left-wing DEI ideology, instead of embracing just the general principles of colour blindness, merit, and judging people by their character.
Do you think, actually, what's happening here is once you start to keep focusing on someone's colour, then you start to ignore a little bit of what talent you're looking for, Ken? Because ultimately, the Nicola Lloyd, who was one of the commissioning editors, was saying, oh, no more white men, please, sort of thing. But actually, if we stopped talking so much about what colour someone is and focused on the abilities and ignored the colour equation, that actually things would equalise more quickly. What do you think, Ken? Final word to you.
I believe of any kind of war that you're the one with all the spoils and all the assets. You don't want to lose anything. But if you are on the other end, the person who's knocking the door and want to come in, and even though you might have more talent than some of the people that are currently on that platform, you don't get a look in. And I think, as I said, even now, I think he needs to do a little bit of work on himself, because nobody's mentioned anything about a racist aspect of it. We put about the change and about the privilege that platform that they have, that they're not even realizing that they've got that platform. But from my aspect, from on the street side of thing, it's about time that we saw people who look like me.
Well, listen, Ken, I've got to go because we're running out of time, but it's really good to talk to you both, Niall Gardner and Ken Hines. Really good to talk. Thank you very much for joining us. So, what do you think? Should ITV News presenter Tom Bradby be censored? Your verdict is now in. 14% of you agree that Tom Bradby should be censored for his comments, whilst 86% of you say that he should not. Coming up, Rishi Sunak speaks out over the Reform UK racism row.
When my two daughters have to see and hear Reform people who campaign for Nigel Farage calling me an effing it hurts and it makes me angry.
So is there an issue with the culture of Nigel Farage's party? My panel will debate that at 10. But next, nearly 30,000 more Channel migrants by the end of the year. How many would be granted asylum under a Labour government? I'll give you the views of former UKIP leader Henry Bolton, and he'll react to a woke university banning the term illegal immigrant. This is Patrick Christys tonight, only on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
In World War I, 309 men from Britain and the Commonwealth never came home because they'd been shot at dawn. The majority were killed for desertion, cowardice and sleeping at post. Appearing at their court-martials and told they'd brought shame on their country, these men had no opportunity to defend themselves and were executed by a firing squad. The National Memorial Arboretum launched a fundraising campaign to restore the memorial, which has stood for more than 20 years.
Thank you to your viewers for their support for the fundraising campaign. And thanks to the generosity of so many people, we've been able to replace all 309 of the posts that represent those young men that were shot in the First World War, restoration of this really precious memorial.
The centrepiece of the memorial is the young soldier, blindfolded and facing his execution. In September 1916, Private Harry Farr was ordered to the front. Already suffering from shell shock, he was overwhelmed and refused his orders. He was court-martialed, and in a trial lasting only 20 minutes, he was sentenced to death. On the day of his execution, he faced the firing squad without a blindfold. Janet Booth is Private Farr's granddaughter and was part of the public campaign to have those who were shot at dawn officially pardoned.
When I asked my gran, do you know where I could find Harry's grave? And she looked at my mother, and there was this sort of look between them, and then she said, well, he hasn't got a grave because they didn't warrant, he deserved one because he was shot as a coward and had let his country down. We can come here as a family and pay our respects to him, and also for all the other families, it's somewhere to come and remember their loved ones.
The People's Channel.
Congratulations to the GB News winners at this year's Trick Awards.
And the winner of Interview of the Year is... Alistair Stewart reveals his heartbreaking diagnosis to Camilla Tominey.
And the winner is GB News Breakfast. And the winner is Nigel Farage.
And thank you to you, our GB News viewers and listeners, for making us the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
On election night, we are throwing a party.
The GB News Election Night Watch Party will be live from Essex, and you are all invited.
On air from 10 o'clock, we'll have familiar faces from across the channel, entertainment and lots more stuff as we keep our eye on all the results as they come flying in.
If you want to join our live Election Night Watch Party audience, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com/election party.
Good evening. If you just tuned in, where have you been? This is Patrick Christys tonight with me, Nana Akwe, only on GB News. And coming up, the organisation and the Refugee Council have predicted that nearly 30,000 more migrants will cross the English Channel by the end of the year. Now, that would add up to the 60,000 illegal immigrants already earmarked by the Tories to be deported to Rwanda. But Labour have made clear that they would abandon the Rwanda plan.
Does anybody seriously think that not processing the claims when now record numbers are coming across the channel is operating as a deterrent? Because we've had more coming in the early months of this year than we've ever had before. It is the absolute opposite of a deterrent. But I don't accept that the only answer to this conundrum is what we do when people have arrived. Just because the government has lost control of the borders at the channel, I'm not prepared to take the same route.
But in the next 6 months, the asylum backlog is predicted to reach as many as 90,000 people. So I'm joined now by former UKIP leader Henry Bolton. Henry, the Tories have allowed tens of thousands to pour into this country. Are Labour wrong to grant these people asylum now?
Yeah, look, I think, Nana, what we can expect the Labour Party to do, presuming they win the election, is, first of all, they will attempt to join the EU's asylum and migration pact, which will mean that they can stop the small boats by taking all of these people in from the European Union who are presently crossing in small boats and bring them in, if you like, sort of provide them with a seat on a ferry or a seat on a plane to bring them into the UK as the UK's sort of part of the EU approach under that pact. So, and Keir Starmer, I can imagine, would declare that as a win, because he would say that this is now a safe route for people to come into the United Kingdom. However, that is only going to trigger an increase in the number of people already travelling to the European Union with the purpose to getting to the UK. It's just going to make it a much more seamless process for them. The other thing is Labour is being seen by the migrants and by the people smugglers as a soft touch. Keir Starmer is going to have to overcome that if he wants to sort of act as a deterrent. His government act as a deterrent to them sort of building their business, seeing this as an opportunity to build their business. And as for the backlog, well, the only way that Keir Starmer is going to clear the backlog is to actually pour huge resources into the system, which is actually probably what's needed, at massive additional expense on top of all of the expenditure that he's already planning to sort of impose on the taxpayer in other areas. And all that he's going to do, in effect, is give them a green light. It's basically going to be an amnesty process. And the reason for that is, as the Prime Minister quite rightly told him in the debate that they had, that you can't simply send people back to Afghanistan or to Iran or to Syria unless you're going to deal with the regimes there. So this is going to, the overall result of this is going to be higher rates of economic migrants coming to the UK to claim asylum. As for legal immigration, which is the other side of it, and actually bigger numbers.
But Henry,
well,
hold on.
Sorry.
1 second, Henry, because you're on a bit of a roll. I've got to stop you there because I've got to ask you. You've not got long. Well, Keir Starmer says that he's going to have this border control, border command, or whatever he's calling it. He's going to smash the gangs, and he said he's done it before. He's worked with all different international agencies, and he does have a good grasp of all the legal procedures and processes within it. So why might that not work? I mean, you've got about 30 seconds.
OK, it might not work because he's not going the full hog with it. I've long advocated that we should robustly hunt down organised crime beyond the European Union, beyond Europe's borders, because that's where it starts, and actually track them down, hunt them down, destroy and disrupt their networks. Now, that's what he should do.
I said 30 seconds, Henry. Thank you, Henry. That's Henry Bolton. Lovely to talk to you. Right, coming up, former MP Sir Brandon Lewis is live in the studio to conduct a full inquest into the Tory party. But next, earlier tonight, Nigel Farage sensationally claimed against that the racist campaigner for Reform UK was in fact a plant. Channel 4 have issued a robust denial and Rishi Sunak has spoken out. All of that to come. But first, let's get an update with your weather with Alex Deacon. Do not go anywhere.
Warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Good evening to you. Tomorrow, bit of a three-way split with our weather. Bright and breezy across Scotland with a few showers, mostly fine and sunny across East Anglia and the southeast. But in between, this weather system is creeping towards us. Not a particularly potent one, but it will bring cloud and some outbreaks of rain. That's starting to move across the Republic of Ireland at the moment and spreading towards Wales and southern parts of Northern Ireland by dawn. Still a few showers across the far north and west of Scotland. Still quite breezy here as well, but elsewhere the wind's pretty light with some clearer skies. Temperatures will dip down to single figures, but actually turning quite cloudy here, but that will keep the cloudy temperatures up across Wales and northwest England through the early hours. The cloud will increase a little bit across southwest England too, so a grey start here for some, maybe the odd shower, but for much of East Anglia and the southeast, fine and sunny, and for a good part of Scotland and Northern Ireland, certainly the north of Northern Ireland, a fine start to Saturday, some decent spells of sunshine. Still quite breezy across the far north and still plenty of showers packing in across Caithness, Sutherland, the Western Isles and the Northern Isles. They'll keep going for much of the day, but a good chunk of Scotland will be dry. This cloud and rain, though, likely to stick around. Not much rain, I suspect, getting to the east of the Pennines, but still predominantly cloudy here. Dull and damp on some of those coasts across northwest England, north and west Wales throughout. But brighter skies further south and with a bit of sunshine. 25 degrees is possible across the southeast. Scotland and Northern Ireland in the high teens, but with a bit of sunshine. It shouldn't feel too bad because the winds will be lighter tomorrow compared to today. Mostly fairly light winds on Sunday as well. Some rain will head back towards Shetland. Could start quite grey in the south with one or two showers here. Quite a bit of cloud on Sunday, but I'm still optimistic that many places will see some sunny spells. And we've lost the heat from earlier in the week. Temperatures at or a touch below average.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain. Followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This election night, we're putting on a party.
And you are invited.
We'll be here with you,
Following all the twists and turns.
As well as all the live reaction from our election night watch party.
With our GB News lineup.
And as morning breaks, we'll be here with breakfast from 6 a.m.
As it becomes clear who the winners and the losers really are.
Vote 2024.
Thursday, the 4th of July.
Only on GB News, Britain's election channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Bev Turner. Thank you for joining us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Nana Akwe in for Patrick Christys tonight.
When my two daughters have to see and hear reform people who campaign for Nigel Farage calling me an effing it hurts and it makes me angry.
Rishi Sunak thinks reform has a culture problem. In the last few moments, Nigel Farage has hit back.
He was acting from the very start. This is a total and utter setup.
Also, is this the reason for the predicted Tory wipeout?
I'm here fighting for every vote for every seat. And the more votes and the more seats we get, the more chance the Conservatives have of winning.
David Cameron has been blamed. I'll sit down with former Lord Chancellor Sir Brandon Lewis to ask what the future holds for his party. Plus, at least Joe Biden still has one fan.
Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question.
I'll show you a brand new clip from today's rally that doesn't paint Biden in a great line again. I'll also have the first of tomorrow's front pages with my press pack, former BBC political editor John Sargent, ex-Apprentice star Joanna Jarjou, and also political commentator Alex Armstrong. Oh, and what happens next here? Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Does reform have a culture problem? Next.
Good evening. It's 1 minute past 10. I'm Cameron Walker here in the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister says Nigel Farage has questions to answer after a video emerged of a campaigner making racist comments. Andrew Parker was seen making a series of offensive remarks about Rishi Sunak. He's now apologised, but insists he was goaded into making them. Rishi Sunak says it's part of a broader pattern of behaviour. Well, tonight, Nigel Farage has reiterated the comments have no place in his party and has doubled down on his claims the secretly recorded video is a setup. A Channel 4 spokesperson says they strongly stand by what they called rigorous and duly impartial journalism. To the US now, and President Joe Biden says he intends to win the election in his first public event since his struggle during last night's television debate. He's just been speaking at a rally in the last couple of hours in North Carolina, where Democrats are hoping to win the state back from Republicans this November. He claimed America itself is at stake and accused former US President Donald Trump of repeatedly lying and said he has the morals of an alley cat. After his own shaky performance during the debate last night, President Biden directly addressed the limits of his old age.
I don't walk as easy as I used to. I don't speak as smoothly as I used to. I don't debate as well as I used to. But I know what I do know. I know how to tell the truth. I know right from wrong. And I know how to do this job. I know how to get things done. And I know, like millions of Americans know, when you get knocked down, you get back up.
But former US President Donald Trump has been speaking at a rally in Virginia tonight. He reacted to Joe Biden's performance from last night's TV debate.
He's grossly incompetent. You know, they keep saying old. I know people that are much older than him that are doing unbelievable things. It's not his age, it's his competence. He's not respected anywhere in the world. Our country is being laughed at all over the world.
Police are concerned for the welfare of a man who's been missing for just over a week. 18-year-old Dylan Duffy from Oldham was last seen boarding a train from Manchester Piccadilly to London Euston on the 18th of June. CCTV has captured him leaving the station that evening. He was last seen wearing a black tracksuit and a grey baseball cap and wearing a backpack. And a house in Los Angeles where Marilyn Monroe lived and tragically died has been saved from demolition. The couple who've bought the property, who already live in a neighbouring one, plans to replace the building with an extension, but the City Council have now declared it a historical landmark, scuppering the extension plans. But the couple reportedly have no plans to put it up for sale and say they'll appeal the decision. It was the only house ever owned by the Hollywood icon. She lived there for 6 months until her death in 1962. Well, those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, I'm Cameron Walker. More in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Now, an emotional Rishi Sunak has responded after a Reform UK volunteer used a racial slur against him.
When my two daughters have to see and hear Reform people who campaign for Nigel Farage calling me an effing it hurts and it makes me angry, and I think he has some questions to answer. And I don't repeat those words lightly. I do so deliberately because this is too important not to call out clearly for what it is.
Now, the Reform volunteer is a man called Andrew Parker, and he has since apologised, saying he was goaded on by undercover reporters. Nigel Farage condemned the comments yesterday.
Would you apologise to the Prime Minister for the appalling racist way that one of your campaigners spoke about Rishi Sunak?
That was horrible.
Do you apologise to the Prime Minister?
It was horrible.
That's not quite an apology, is it?
How much further can I go? Of course it's an apology. It was horrible. I don't know who this bloke is. Somebody I met once years ago. I mean, awful, horrible, horrible. Almost as bad as the Labour candidate in Clacton and his slurs on white people. Have you covered that?
I'm here to focus.
No. Have you covered the Labour? No.
And today it emerged that Mr Parker is a part-time actor who reportedly lists secret filming among his skills, something Nigel Farage was keen to stress in the last couple of hours speaking on the BBC.
What happened over the last weekend was truly astonishing. A tirade of invective abuse directed at the Prime Minister. I mean, the whole thing was unbelievable. It didn't ring true. So I checked it out. It turns out the man that did this is an actor. On his own site, he says, I'm a well-spoken actor with an alter ego. I do rough talking. Let me tell you, from the minute he turned up in that office in Clacton and I saw him, he was acting from the very start. He even says on his website, hire me, I do undercover filming. This is a total and utter setup.
But Channel 4 strongly refute those claims, and a spokesperson for the broadcaster said, we strongly stand by our rigorous and duly impartial journalism, which speaks for itself. We met Mr Parker for the first time at a Reform UK party headquarters, where he was a Reform Party canvasser. We did not pay the Reform UK canvasser or anyone else in this report. Mr Parker was not known to Channel 4 News and was filmed covertly via the undercover operation. And Mr Sunak believes this episode speaks volumes about the culture in the Reform Party.
Well, when you see Reform candidates and campaigners seemingly using racist and misogynistic language and opinions, seemingly without challenge, I think it tells you something about the culture within the Reform Party.
So is the Prime Minister right that Reform has a culture issue? And does Mr Farage have questions to answer? Well, let's get the thoughts of my panel. Former BBC Chief Political Correspondent John Sargent, former Apprentice star Joanna Jarjou, and also political commentator Alexander Armstrong. Look at that timing. Got it.
Very good.
Got it. You didn't see me running the first bit. I'm going to start with you, Alex. Yeah. Does it appear that Reform UK have an issue in this area?
Well, look, let's be clear. The comments that have been made on that tape are disgusting. I want to make that really, really clear. But for the Prime Minister to say there's a culture in the whole party because of potentially, let's be clear, this is looking like a bit of a dodgy situation with this bloke, potentially some comments made by a few individuals to smear potentially millions of voters that are going to put their ex next to Reform's box is disgraceful. Do we smear the whole Tory party for Frank Hester's words and call them all racist for that, for what he said about Diane Abbott? No. Do we smear the whole Labour Party for what the Clacton candidate or Diane Abbott says and call them racist? No. So let's be clear about what the Prime Minister's trying to do by saying there's a culture in Reform. He's trying to smear the whole party. He's trying to smear the people that are going to be voting for him. I'm going to be voting for Reform. I'm not a racist person. I would never make those comments. So hopefully I'm more representative of people who are going to vote for Reform than any of those vulgar comments that are made out of potential actor and some nasty other activists and candidates.
Well, Nigel Farage has said that a lot of the people who may have aligned themselves with the BNP or other sort of right-leaning parties may have sort of been absorbed within his own party. He says that and actually says that what he did was probably help to squash the BNP because of that. But obviously every party will have its extreme elements. Is that not fair to say that maybe this is just one extreme element? The left have their own, Joanna?
In a way, yeah. I'm not saying that, you know, all Reform voters are racist, and maybe you do, you know, represent a certain pocket, but we can't ignore the fact that there is something about Nigel Farage that does draw in some people who are really more extreme and really more racist. And I don't think that it's even, you know, just a culture issue. I think it's a racism issue across the board that the Reform Party has. And having said that, actually, I'm not saying that other parties haven't had racism issues. Labour Party with anti-Semitism, the Conservative Party with Islamophobia. But the difference is that it's almost like a trickle-down effect with the Reform Party. What is it about Nigel Farage that does actually,
hold on.
with some of the comments
so
that
you're blaming, you're saying it's trickled down, you're saying it's from the top.
Yeah.
So you're saying it's coming from Nigel Farage. That's what you're saying.
Absolutely.
But OK. Give me one racist thing that Nigel Farage has said. I'll just wait for you.
OK, so he defended the C word, referring to the Chinese people. He's defended...
What did he do that, sorry, the C word? He defended that...
Using the C word in reference to Chinese people. We all know the C word.
I mean, I'm not
And then he's also said that principles of Enoch Powell's speech of Rivers of Blood he agrees with.
Where was that, though? I mean, you know, like these things...
He said it literally at an event. He said that there were principles of Enoch Powell's Rivers of Blood speech that he agrees with. He's also referred to things like the Israel lobby. So, like I said, all parties have had their moments and candidates and, you know, MPs that have made racist comments on both sides. But the difference is Nigel Farage seems to just hit every single... Even with women.
Nigel's not here to defend himself. I'm not... You know, look, I don't have the full knowledge of that one, so I'll have to research that.
Google it.
But Alexander...
Yeah, look, there's a big difference between the way Reform behaves compared to the Labour Party. The Labour Party's still standing Diane Abbott, who's made ridiculous racial slurs, and they're still standing Jo Vann in Clacton. Reform boot these people out as soon as they find out about them. Those people have been booted out of the party today.
Should start with himself, because he's made some ridiculous comments.
Yeah, but let's be fair. I mean, he did ask, actually, if anyone could give a comment that he's made this racist. They couldn't answer it. John Sargent.
No, I think the obvious point is that if you are right-wing and you're racist, you will be attracted to many of the policies of the Reform Party. There's no escaping that. If you're very keen on net zero immigration, if you're very keen on Britain having as few people as possible coming in from abroad, don't be surprised if that doesn't excite people who do go around saying terrible things and terrible racist things.
But I don't think that's quite a fair comment, because if you look at maybe the the sort of working class sort of element of the Labour Party, which was what it used to stand for, these people were very nationalistic in terms of... So I'm just saying to you, so if you're saying that...
I'm not saying for a moment, what about racists in Labour, racist in the Conservative gatherings? Yes, that's certainly true. But all I'm saying is that this specific policy that Reform have and are proud of, and are very keen to talk about the immigration election and all the rest of it, don't be surprised if people don't like immigrants and don't like people of a different colour, who are then attracted to Reform.
Every party has admitted.
No, but they don't have the same policies. Look, there's no... The other parties...
But every party
wait a
has
moment.
admitted...
The other parties are not saying, for example, net zero immigration. Now, let's not be
hold on, sorry.
Let's not be mad
let me
about
finish,
this.
I'm trying to say. No, but every party has admitted that there is a problem with immigration. So it's not just Reform UK. Yeah. Everyone's admitted that there's too much immigration in this country and that we need to control our borders.
Can I now just...
This is not exclusive to Reform.
So can I just say something?
You said a lot.
No, I haven't said very much about this. These are specific policies which cut them out from the other parties. And Nigel Farage is very proud of this, and rightly so. These are distinctive policies that he's got. But you can't then at the same time say, oh, well, we don't want you to be supporting us. Because some of these people are going to be supporting Reform, and they're not going to be supporting the Conservatives or Labour because they don't like the liberal consensus of don't be horrible about foreigners, don't be horrible about people of a different colour. That's just true.
Each party has clearly expressed that they want to bring down immigration. The Labour Party said the same thing as well. So to say that people who want lower immigration are drawn specifically to Reform UK, I think is wrong. Why is that wrong?
You're saying the same thing. You're repeating the same point.
It's the way that they reference it. Speaking about immigration, whether it's net immigration or illegal immigration, it's completely fine to discuss that and to say, look, the numbers, based on where we are as a country, fine. It's fine to discuss that, but it's the way that you discuss it. And it's about the historical...
What way has Nigel Farage discussed immigration that makes you feel like he's a racist? He's just telling people...
we're not saying he's a racist.
No, I'm not saying that you are, but Joanna has. And the reality is that you can't call someone a racist who's not made any racist comments. The reality is that people are going to Reform because they see a party that's actually going to deal with perhaps their number one issue that they feel is plaguing this country, which is too many immigrants coming into the country, which is putting pressure on our NHS, putting pressure on our schools, putting pressure on our economy, putting pressure on our housing. Why is that racist? There's nothing racist about that.
Why can't you acknowledge...
But that's not just my view, that's millions of people's view.
Why can't you acknowledge that two things can be right at the same time? You represent clearly the decent portion of the Reform Party, but also there could be other people who feel as if Nigel says it how it is, Nigel's a straight cut. And actually, let's reference back to things like when we were going through Brexit and it had that breaking point poster of a sea of brown faces saying breaking point as if we're going to have some sort of
Joanna, look,
briefly come back on then.
Let's just look at the way that these parties deal with racism and nasty allegations hit at them. If Nigel Farage agreed with these people, he'd go, I'm not doing anything about it. Unfortunately, when you look at the Labour Party, you guys keep racist in your party and you put them up for election. Nigel Farage is standing them down at a pace.
So he should stand himself down based on the things that I've just said.
You're just making up spurious allegations. You're making spurious allegations about him.
It is too easy.
Guys,
hang on, sorry, I'm speaking. It is too easy to suddenly call someone a racist because they want to bring down immigration.
And none of that's not what I said.
Let me finish. Let me finish.
The right thing
it is too easy to do that and then castigate people. But listen, because we've mentioned Clacton, here are the candidates. Very smooth. Jabal Owusu Nepal for the Labour Party, Giles Watling, the Conservative Party, Matthew Ben-Sulam from the Liberal Democrats, Nigel Farage, Reform UK, and Natasha Osborne, the Green Party. Right, Craig Jameson, the Climate Party, Tony Mack, Independent, Tezos Papanstasiou, the Heritage Party, and Andrew Pemberton, UKIP. Well, coming up, Prince Harry's latest phone hacking case. Here's claims that he deliberately destroyed potential evidence. And why is Jill Biden speaking to her husband like a toddler?
Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question.
The Biden meltdown and all of tomorrow's newspapers today, they're on the way. Next, who or what is to blame for the likely Tory wipeout? Lord Frost has laid it at the door of David Cameron. I'll ask the former Lord Chancellor Sir Brandon Lewis if he agrees. Sir Brandon's live in the studio next. Do not go anywhere.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes. Thank you for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
On election night, we are throwing a party.
The GB News Election Night Watch Party will be live from Essex and you are all invited.
On air from 10 o'clock, we'll have familiar faces from across the channel, entertainment and lots more stuff as we keep our eye on all the results as they come flying in.
If you want to join our live Election Night Watch Party audience, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com/election party.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
We're very lucky to have an heir to the throne who is dutiful, loves his family, and he still takes all the children to school in the morning. And you can't really hope for anything more than that, can you? And he's behaved with such dignity. He must be so worried about his father and his lovely wife.
I wonder what the royals are going to do if the next generation of people aren't armed forces, if they don't join the army or the navy or the air force or whatever.
This is very interesting because Prince William doesn't necessarily want little George to do that. He doesn't feel it's necessary. But it's such a stamp on the royal family, isn't it? And with all the costumes, and they're the head of the army. And so what would they do without that? I find that very difficult. I think it's the same with religion, actually, because he's not religious, William. He does go once or twice a year, but he hasn't got the same passion about religion that King Charles does. And I think it's very difficult. I think it'll be maybe a very changed royal family.
Indeed, yeah. We don't know yet who's going to be attending Royal Ascot, but we suspect at the very least the Queen, probably the King and Queen, and maybe even the Prince of Wales as well.
You can't keep the Queen away from horses. I mean, she absolutely loves them. She used to ride them non-stop when she was little. And fascinatingly, her mother never bothered about it because they weren't mobiles then. And she would go off riding for hours and sleep in a field.
Life. What an incredible
and then
childhood.
come back the next day. She never worried about her. She thought she was sensible. She loves animals, dogs and horses. That's one of the things she had very much in common with the late Queen.
The People's Channel.
Congratulations to the GB News winners at this year's Trick Awards.
And the winner of Interview of the Year is... Alistair Stewart reveals his heartbreaking diagnosis to Camilla Tominey.
And the winner is GB News Breakfast. And the winner is Nigel Farage.
And thank you to you, our GB News viewers and listeners, for making us the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, this is Patrick Christys. Tonight with me, Nana Akwe, only on GB News. Now, all of tomorrow's front pages coming up very soon. But first, with just under a week to go until the country goes to the polls on July the 4th, Boris Johnson's ally, Lord Frost, has blamed the impending Tory wipeout on the party's leadership, the return of what he termed Cameronism. In the recent election betting scandal, writing in The Telegraph, he said, since the autumn reshuffle and the disastrous mistake of returning to Cameronism, including by bringing back the man himself, since the persistent failure to do what was necessary to control the small boats problem, disaster has been inevitable. A poor campaign has been compounded by the appalling betting scandal and its ponderous handling. I admit that, as it spread, I seriously considered cutting up my party card. Well, I'm joined now by former Conservative Justice Secretary Sir Brandon Lewis. Brandon, thank you very much for joining me. So what does the future look like for the Conservative Party?
Well, there's no question we've got a challenging week ahead. There's a huge amount of work to do. I've been out myself this afternoon, actually, with some of our volunteers, getting the deliveries done. And, you know, our volunteers across the country are working so hard because there's going to be a huge number of seats that are going to be decided by potentially very small margins. That extra bit of work that people are putting in this week, our brilliant party members, could well make a difference. I think the focus is on that, but nobody can deny this is going to be a very, very tough week for us.
Well, it's a total, utter mess, though, the Conservatives got themselves into. I mean, they had an 80-seat majority, which they literally just blew apart. Who do you blame for, if you were to look at this, who would you say is responsible for the mess that the party found itself in?
Well, as you say, if you look back to 2019, to think about going from an 80 majority to where we are today, we would have thought it was unthinkable. We were all thinking about and talking about a 10-year Boris Johnson government, and I suspect there'll be A-level exam questions about this somewhere down the line in the future. But where I slightly disagree with David, I mean, there is culpability, absolutely, and obviously we have not, you know, we've seen through this election campaign some really challenging days that have been self-inflicted. There's no getting away from the reality of that. But I think there's a multitude of issues. You know, apart from 14 years in government, it's challenging. If you look, nobody's ever succeeded at winning another term after that period of time in government. But I think also, if you look since 2019, with the government that's had to deal with COVID, with Ukraine, there's a whole range of things over a period of time that have built up. I think, actually, might have been on GBNews, I saw Frank Luntz, I think, made a very, very good observation, which is one of the hardest things to get past with the public is what the public see as betrayal. And actually, when you make promises to the public about what you're going to deliver, then for whatever reason you don't, whether it's COVID, Ukraine or whatever, when you make a series of promises in a manifesto, or as the PM did when he came in, his 5 promises, and you aren't delivering on them, then the public are going to ask a question.
But
that's a real challenge.
But you bring in the 5 promises, and I will agree betrayal, but you bring in the 5 promises, but the public probably felt betrayed well before that. I mean, for example, let's say getting rid of Boris Johnson, who was the person who gave them the 80-seat majority. Ultimately, people vote for a party, yes, via MPs, but the head of that party does determine a lot of people's vote.
Yeah,
and the Tory party got rid of Boris Johnson.
Yeah, and look, I don't think I've spoken about this publicly before, but the night before Boris resigned, I was in Number 10. I flew back from Northern Ireland. I can remember saying to the PM at the time, the situation we were in was the situation. The numbers are the numbers, and he couldn't field a government. He had all these resignations. What I thought was fundamentally wrong with that was ultimately, and I said this to him, the public gave him the mandate. And I think the same way that the Conservative Party moved Margaret Thatcher, whatever you think of where Boris was, and I know a lot of our MPs and colleagues and people across the country had views about where Boris was at the time and what happened with various things. But the reality is the public had given him a mandate to deliver. And when you then renege on that as a party and say, well, actually, we know the public gave you the mandate, but we've decided something else, that's a challenging place to be. And I think it's very hard. That's one of those issues around not delivering. You know, the public had the government stood with Boris as Prime Minister, then the parliamentarians took a different view. That's a hard hurdle to get over.
Well, obviously...
There's no getting away from
Then they got rid of an ally, which was Liz Truss.
Yes.
And they literally chucked her out to sea. Her mini-budget didn't go down well. But really, it can't fully be blamed on her. She then sacked her Chancellor, which was a huge mistake. But then Rishi took over and brought back David Cameron. Why bring back David?
Well, that's a question you'd have to ask Rishi. Look, I got elected with David as our leader of our party and obviously served under him as a junior minister when he was Prime Minister. I joined the Cabinet with Theresa May, but David made me Minister first of all. Now, I'm a big fan of David's. I think having somebody of David's stature and experience coming back into government, I actually think is a good thing potentially for the country. I think it was challenging. If you're the Prime Minister who's saying to the country, as Rishi was, I am changed, but then you bring back David from previous years, that conflicts. And it was interesting how the party then dropped the sort of change message. I think he had no choice about that at that point. And look, I served with Liz. I supported Liz to be leader. I still think what Liz was trying to do was the right thing. I appreciate, obviously, the way it was delivered didn't work, and we saw the repercussions of that. But I think actually one of the things that the country wants to see, and I think we as a party need to be more powerful in our messaging around and actually show what we could have done, is actually to reduce the pressure on people, reduce taxes on people, to show that you can run government more efficiently and more effectively, to allow people to choose themselves how they spend the money in their pocket, rather than having such a high proportion of tax. And that's something we as Conservatives need to be stronger on.
Well, you have brought us one of the highest tax burdens ever. But Lord Frost suggests a new movement to revive conservatism based on conservative ideas and reaching out to everyone who wants to see them prosper one day again. Do you think that that's that's a dream that may come true? And how soon do you think the Conservatives, because I think they're going to lose, how long is it going to be before they come back?
As I said to you, I think there's a huge number of seats across the country that, look, I recognise the polling, I'm a realist about that, but within that polling there's still a lot of seats that, with a lot of work in the next week and certain things happening, could go either way. So we're not quite sure what the outcome will be. There is only really one poll next Thursday that really matters. But I think ultimately we're a party, and the strength of our party has always been our membership. I saw this as chairman in 2019 when we had the leadership election campaign going around the country, again in 2022. Sadly, we had to do it again. But our members are brilliant, and we are a membership-led party.
Well, perhaps.
And I think our members are going to be key to making sure that the party is able to resuscitate, rebuild, if we need to, come Friday, and to give us an impetus to go forward, be a credible opposition if we're in opposition. I'm not a betting man
no,
of politics.
Don't do it, please. Not now.
But if we're in that space, I think we need to remember our members are the heart and soul of our party.
Well, if that's the case, maybe next time listen to them.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Brandon Lewis, thank you very much. Really good to talk to you. Thank you so much. Right, well, coming up, my panel return to tackle all of tomorrow's newspaper front pages. Stay tuned.
Time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Good evening to you. Tomorrow, bit of a three-way split with our weather. Bright and breezy across Scotland with a few showers, mostly fine and sunny across East Anglia and the southeast. But in between, this weather system is creeping towards us. Not a particularly potent one, but it will bring cloud and some outbreaks of rain. That's starting to move across the Republic of Ireland at the moment and spreading towards Wales and southern parts of Northern Ireland by dawn. Still a few showers across the far north and west of Scotland. Still quite breezy here as well, but elsewhere the wind's pretty light with some clearer skies. Temperatures will dip down to single figures, but it's actually turning quite cloudy here, but that will keep the cloudy temperatures up across Wales and northwest England through the early hours. The cloud will increase a little bit across southwest England too, so a grey start here for some, maybe the odd shower, but for much of East Anglia and the southeast, fine and sunny, and for a good part of Scotland and Northern Ireland, certainly the north of Northern Ireland, a fine start to Saturday, some decent spells of sunshine. Still quite breezy across the far north, and still plenty of showers packing in across Caithness, Sutherland, the Western Isles and the Northern Isles. They'll keep going for much of the day, but a good chunk of Scotland will be dry. This cloud and rain, though, likely to stick around. Not much rain, I suspect, getting to the east of the Pennines, but still predominantly cloudy here. Dull and damp on some of those coasts across northwest England, north and west Wales throughout. But brighter skies further south and with a bit of sunshine. 25 degrees is possible across the southeast. Scotland and Northern Ireland in the high teens, but with a bit of sunshine. It shouldn't feel too bad because the winds will be lighter tomorrow compared to today. Mostly fairly light winds on Sunday as well. Some rain will head back towards Shetland. Could start quite grey in the south with one or two showers here. Quite a bit of cloud on Sunday, but I'm still optimistic that many places will see some sunny spells. And we've lost the heat from earlier in the week. Temperatures at or a touch below average.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Nana Akweer. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, this is Patrick Christys. Tonight, only on GB News with me, Nana Akweer. Now it's time to bring you tomorrow's News Tonight in the most entertaining paper review on telly. The very first front pages have just been delivered for my press pack. Right, so the front cover of the Mirror starts with "I could hear Jay slipping on the rocks." And this is the missing Brit who has gone. That is in the Mirror. That'd be an interesting story to read. So that feels like a sort of fresh new bit of news. Right, next up, the Eye. Now, this leads with UK public sends clear message to Labour and Tories, save Britain's rivers. Now, this is something that Ed Davey was talking about, and now suddenly the major parties are picking it up, which is, I'd say, a good thing all round, really. The Independent, which on that front cover, the PM hurt and angry at P-word, race slur by Farage activist. And then also we've got the images of Joe Biden and, of course, Donald Trump, Joe Biden's stumbling performance. The Daily Express, Rishi May, my hurt and anger at daughters hearing racist slur. I mean, of course, this is an extension of the earlier story. And then in the Daily Star, man baby beats up doddery old bloke on live TV. You can always rely on them for one of those. And then, of course, the Daily Telegraph, Biden is given 1 week to stand down. And also there's another story under their Labour plan to ration middle-class access to services. Interesting. That'll make an interesting read tomorrow. So those are the front pages. I'm joined now by my press pack, former BBC chief political correspondent John Sargent, former Apprentice star Joanna Jarjou, also political commentator Alex Armstrong. Right, so let's have a look at the Telegraph front page. So Biden's given 1 week to stand down. Joanna Jarjou, does that sound reasonable?
You know what? I've defended Biden for a very, very long time, and I've, said for as long as I can, I've been clinging on and saying, but it's fine. But now it's starting to get, a bit scary. And I actually think that he's had other moments that have been, worse. And I've seen, him defending himself and saying, at least I'm not a liar. I might have lost my touch when it comes to my pizzazz when I'm doing debates. And when he was speaking to the crowd, he was so much better. So I just don't understand. It's so unpredictable.
It's the medication.
But then they should have had him pop a pill or something, or whatever medication he's on before the actual,
Well, I think he did.
debate.
It just wore off after 20 minutes.
Yeah,
I think also he's heavily advised, and once you're advised by 5 people saying, do say this, make sure you say that, and don't then add this, and then don't add to this, do this. He's confused, isn't he? And when you're that age, I should know a bit about that.
You're not that old, John.
I've got another year to go.
No.
I'm 80.
Never?
Yes, no, I'm 80.
Wow, you're looking good on it.
But
you do a better job of president than Joe Biden.
Anyway,
I think we all would.
but you feel the cognitive failure there, and watching 2 hours of it, which I did this morning, having recorded it. And I just thought, how awful and how sad.
Well, I mean, look, it was a disastrous performance, wasn't it? Even the most loyal Democrat would struggle to say anything good about their leader's performance. And finally, Joanna Jarjou has also admitted that it was awful, but stepped forward, Jill Biden, with this bizarre speech at Campaign HQ.
Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the facts. And let me ask the crowd, what did Trump do?
God, it's so embarrassing. And Biden's back rallying in North Carolina today, but looks completely lost and confused as Jill Biden delivers another impassioned speech.
I saw in him then the same character that I see in him today. And even though he has faced unimaginable tragedies, his optimism is undaunted. His strength is unshakable. His hope is undeterred. Here in North Carolina and across America, who are working hard to find a secure place in the middle class.
I think we've just seen who's running America.
Yeah.
Alex, what do you think?
Well,
seriously.
It is like, unfortunately, it sounds horrible to say, but it's like a carer, isn't it? It's just like talking down to him like a child. He's just standing there, doesn't even know where he is. He looks completely devoid of any knowledge about what he's doing, where he is. Frankly, this is embarrassing for America. And a lot of us have been saying this for years, and unfortunately, people like Joanna Jarjou, the penny's just dropped after last night, but the penny dropped for me about 2-3 years ago when I saw you stumbling off.
It took you so long, Joanna. A lot of these people on the Democrat side saying, oh, God, Joe Biden. Look, the other day he was talking to nobody. Next, there's a parachute guy landed. He's talking to nobody. He looked like he was doing something in his pants when he sat down and he had to be lifted. I mean, come on, people.
I think it's because it's dangerous now. It's getting closer and closer.
He's been having his finger on the red button for the last 4 years. It's dangerous now.
Why people are excited about Jill Biden is they think that she's the one who's going to deliver the coup de grace. She won't, no. There'll be a team of people who, over the next few days, when they get all the opinion poll evidence in, and we get all the reports from all the main people in the party, and they will simply say, look, do you want 24 hours to think about this?
I tell you what...
This is the dossier. Would you read that through, Mr President? We're not being disloyal to you. You go away and think about it. And this is the equivalent, in the old phrase of Westminster, of giving someone a silver revolver on a silver platter. A revolver with a glass of whiskey.
What is getting them very excited? I hear Michelle Obama's picking out the drapes for the Oval Office as we speak, because that's where they think is coming next. So I bet they can't wait to get rid of Joe Biden to airdrop her in at the last minute.
But she doesn't want to do it.
Well, that's what. Who says that in politics that they want the top job, though?
But that would be the best incentive, because we've always seen, the clips of them and having, a really close relationship. And I think that, Joe Biden will probably be in a position where he'll say, if I'm going to stand down for anybody and if I respect anybody to take my place, I don't think that he would do it for Kamala Harris. But I think that when it comes to Michelle Obama, that could be the silver bullet.
He should do it for America and for the rest of the world, for goodness sake. But next up, Sir Ed Davey of the Liberal Democrats was the final leader to be interviewed by the BBC's Nick Robinson. Have a listen.
It's a tough question, but it's one I think you've reflected on, that given your role that we've discussed in austerity, the broken promise on tuition fees, the failure to stop the post office scandal when some people think you had the chance to do so, are you the man who can help restore trust in politics?
Well, that will be the voters' decision. And what I say to the voters is, look how we've developed the party. The fact that we're talking about the NHS and care, your issues, the fact we're talking about the cost of living crisis you've suffered, the fact we're talking about the environment and things like sewage. Listen to us and come and vote for us, please.
Of course, Davey is really going the extra mile to win those votes in this final week of campaigning. He was going to embark on a 1,343-mile tour of John O'Groats to Land's End. I didn't even need to read that. I knew the numbers. I knew that's what he was going to do. There'll be some water somewhere on his travels.
Surprised it wasn't Thorpe Park.
He's going to visit... well, that almost sounds like a joke, but
it's true.
True. He's going to visit seats that the Liberal Democrats are hoping to take from the Tories and the SNP, and no doubt there will be a few more stunts along the way. Now, I was going to say, I mean, it's good that others are picking up his messaging, though, because on the front cover of the Eye, the Public sends a clear message to Labour and the Tories: save Britain's rivers. So something that he's doing is getting through, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and well, I mean, I think we're all shocked by it. I mean, every day you're suddenly told places that you've known for years, and to the idea that Henley should be a place for E. coli.
Crazy.
I mean, that is when you think that someone died of E. coli, the first one of the recent thing, it can be a fiendish, horrible illness created by this.
Yeah.
And you remember a few years ago when who was that guy that swam the whole length of the Thames as a...
Oh, yeah, I can't remember his name.
A comedian, nice guy, and he was ill afterwards, and people thought, oh, how strange, I'm sure the River Thames is all right. No, it's not all right.
Yeah. Well, EastEnders have got it painted blue at the moment, haven't they?
Was it David Williams?
Yeah, I think it was Williams. Yeah, that's Williams, that's it. Yeah, just disgraceful.
Yeah.
Disgraceful.
Well, listen, don't forget, GB News will be live in Essex on election night as Michelle Dewberry and Patrick Christys host our exclusive coverage as the polls draw to a close. It's going to be very exciting. So if you want to be part of our live audience in Essex with Patrick and Michelle, then apply now. Either you can scan the QR code on the screen or visit gbnews.com/election coverage. Right, coming up, but next, Prince Harry has been accused of deliberately destroying potential evidence in his latest phone hacking case. Are his endless legal battles doing more harm than good to his reputation? This is Patrick Christys tonight with me, Nana Acquia, only on GB News.
Britain's Newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
He fell into a coma. His family, of course, absolutely distraught. Because Turkey is outside the European Union, it therefore doesn't count under the Global Health Insurance Card scheme, which means that he is liable for these costs, and the family say that he's being held there for until they pay at least half the £41,000 that is owed.
One of our viewers here saying their premium, because they have health conditions, can be as much as £1,000. But if they're going to go overseas to, as you say, a non-EU country, they still should take it. That's the message here, isn't it? Don't take the risk.
Absolutely. Now, if you do have lots of pre-existing medical conditions, or you're an older person, my lovely mother-in-law is going to be 95 this week. She's still travelling, but only within Europe, and only because the cost of insurance is going to be many times the cost of the trip. And she just thinks, OK, well, I'll get emergency medical treatment free if I'm in the European Union and I've got that GHIC card. But beyond that, absolutely not. It's not worth the risk.
You have to have your card, do you, Simon, to get treatment within the EU? You should just apply for that online.
You should certainly apply for it online. Don't go to any of the scam sites that want to charge you money for it, because it's a free card. But actually, if you haven't, it's absolutely not a huge problem. Yes, you have to go through a bit of rigmarole, or at least your family do, to sort it out. But in general, if you go to a public hospital, they will treat you first and ask questions later in the European Union. And if you're a British resident, you should get it for free. Even if you forgot to get the GHIC card, they will sort it out eventually.
Britain's election channel. GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Patrick, Christys tonight. Only on GB News, it's time to return to the liveliest paper review on the telly, and more front pages have been delivered hot off the press. Right. So, the first, we've got the Daily Mail, front cover of the Daily Mail. Boris, Britain can still swerve Starmageddon. Yeah, that's what he's saying, but a lot of them, the reason we're in this mess is because of them. Then on the front cover of The Times, Kemi Badenoch says voters must see through Farage Act. And then more on Joe Biden and as well, Democrats discussing whether to ditch him. And then the front cover of The Guardian. Biden's shaky TV debate sparks calls to quit the race. He really needs to go, doesn't he? He does, really. How long have you given him to leave, not anything else?
Well, I think they'll do it right at the last minute to give the new candidate less scrutiny, because the less scrutiny a new candidate gets, the better.
I think also what you've got to do, act when the pressure is on. That's when you can force all sorts of proper, sensible changes. You say, look, we've got no more time. This is it. That's what they need.
Well, sir, and Joanna Georgie?
Well, I think it'll all depend on the American media. CNN has basically been falling apart recently, and I think, losing their minds after this. And I think any more interaction between Biden and Trump will just make it spiral more.
Well, now to Prince Harry. He's facing accusations that he deliberately destroyed potential evidence relating to his phone hacking claim against The Sun's publisher. Now, a High Court judge ordered the Duke of Sussex to personally explain why and how drafts of his memoir, Spare, messages, God, that memoir's getting him in so much trouble, messages exchanged with his ghostwriter were destroyed well after he sued News Group newspapers in 2019. Mr Justice Fancourt said it was troubling that the documents and conversations have been deleted when the case was already well underway. NGN's lawyer Anthony Hudson, KC, suggested this was done deliberately, but in response, Harry's lawyer David Sherborne said that only a handful of the 35,000 emails were relevant. So, John, are these endless legal battles doing more harm than good to Prince Harry?
Well, it depends. If he wins in the end, people will say what a marvellous struggle, and he succeeded. If he wants to spend his time and his money on this, but it does seem to be an extraordinary sort of chase after nothing very much. And, of course, it's all about him and it's all about them and it's all... And I think the public look on this, I certainly do, just think, oh, for goodness sake, do we have to endure months and months of this sort of narcissistic...
whinging.
Sort of self-love on such an extraordinary
He's not
scale.
the only person who's suing them. There's other people. The only difference is that we care more, this country cares more, the media cares more, and I think it's about the principle for him. It's not because he's wanting some big payout and compensation. It's about what he's gone through personally, from being a child to all the way to being an adult. And I think that it's really crucial to acknowledge... I really do feel sorry for him.
Please,
I really do feel sorry for him.
Multi-millionaire Prince Harry.
Oh, come on. No, can I just say...
Can
I just say, it's really crucial that this isn't other incriminating, evidence.
He's deleted
these
something.
are drafts. No, but these are drafts from his memoir, Spare. And obviously, if some of these things could have been leaked, then all the media would have been all the way through it. So I actually think that he probably has a good case and justification as to why drafts of Spare
All right, well,
deleted.
Joanna talks about Harry's principles, but this is a bloke that clearly lied on his visa. Well, you just said that. You just
I said it's about the principle.
Well, let's talk about the principle of him lying on his visa application.
Well, we don't know whether he has.
Well, he
we're
says
still
in
waiting.
Spare, he says in Spare that he took drugs, on your visa application to America, you have to declare that you've never taken any drugs or participated in
But
them.
we don't know.
But we don't know
what it says.
We don't know for sure. But it's pretty
it.
bloody likely he did. So let's be clear. We can't put it past him for destroying evidence. I mean, if he's lying about things, potentially lying, sorry, should I say, I don't want to get in trouble because I know Meghan and Harry go after people. If he's potentially lying about this, then he wouldn't put it past him to do this either.
But he dressed up as a Nazi to go to a party. I mean, it's not as if any of us would be considering that, Joanna.
Sorry?
Well, he dressed up, didn't he, as a Nazi to go to a party? I mean,
well, what's that got to do with this, Nana? I feel like you lot just hate Harry. And it's like he's made his mistakes, but it's like, let's just get that one little jab in there.
It's not a jab. It's not a little jab, is it? But I just thought I'd mention that as well. Look, what do you think? What should go on? Should he just stop this litigious process constantly?
He just needs to shut up and do what royals do best and go to charities, look out for other people. He's from extreme privilege. He just shut up and look after the people that he needs.
Just enjoy your privilege, Harry. Just have some fun. We don't mind. I know we paid for it, but hey...
You do mind.
At least be... Well, I want him to at least be happy. Be happy, please.
No, you don't want him to be happy.
No, I do. I want him to be happy.
You don't want him to be...
Yes, I do. I'm telling you what I want. You're telling me I don't want it. I'm just telling you that.
I think he's made the point clearly that he's a victim, and it must be absolutely awful. We've gone through all that. Can we now move on?
He's not the only
Harry,
victim.
get on. No. He thinks he's the only victim. Now, take a look at this dramatic dashcam footage showing a fugitive driver being collared by what you could only describe as a dogged police officer.
Yeah, and past 5 1 so we've got an adult male getting out of the rear upstairs kitchen window into the back garden now. He's down onto the drain pipe onto the garden over.
This dog, there's a police dog chasing him. He's trying to catch him. The police dog is running. It's like a little Alsatian, isn't it? And he keeps going. Is he going to get him? He's still chasing him. The man's running on a field now, or somebody's front lawn. And finally, the dog catches him and keeps him down, and he surrenders. So despite the dog's hard work, the dangerous driver was let off with a suspended sentence. I mean, whatever.
Typical. He'll hate dogs for the rest of his life.
Typical. Well, it's time now to reveal today's greatest Briton and Union Jackass. Right, I'm going to start with you, John Sargent, your greatest Briton.
Right, well, I think a little round of applause for the Princess Royal. Right, Princess Anne, I've met her, of course, and she's great. And she's back now, and eager to start work, but being careful, because if you've been concussed, you can suddenly feel it weeks later. So they've got to be careful. But no, I think she's a good egg.
Yeah, she obviously had the accident on a horse. We don't know the full details. Joanna Jarju, your greatest Briton.
My greatest Briton is Carol Vorderman. I think she's been absolutely incredible. And to say that the majority of the country have, turned their backs on the Tories, she has been instrumental in really getting people to tactically vote to get them out. So whether you're a Reform voter or a Labour, Lib Dem, Green, all of the parties, if you tactical vote, she has been instrumental in that, and I think she should be applauded.
Female version of Peter Mandelson.
While she was working at the BBC as well, when she was doing that. All right, Alex, your greatest Briton, she was.
Mine's Phil Foden. He's left the Euros to go and see his baby boy that was just born, and I think he sets a really great example for all young men. Work is important, the game's important, but your family's got to come first. And I think his child will forever, when that child grows up, will respect his dad for making that decision. I'm sure he'll be back in the game shortly.
He's flown back already. You want surprise for that? You must be joking.
No,
you should be there anyway.
On.
You should knock off the game, forget it, and stay with her to look after the baby as well afterwards. Of course, the greatest Briton, it's got to go to you, John. Yes, it's Princess Royal, of course, Princess Anne. She's brilliant, isn't she?
Not Carol?
She is.
Yeah, she's brilliant. No, not Carol Vorderman. Right, time for Union Jackass. John.
Thames Water. I know we normally choose an individual, but this business, honestly, in the River Thames, this latest, it's just the latest of these things. We just cannot go on year after year, all of us wanting our rivers to be clean, and for somehow or other, it's all not possible. And it's just when there's rain and when there's this and when there's that, it is just terrible. It's a mark on our country.
I agree.
And it's just, they should stop that. If we can do it with the Union Jackass nomination, this is it.
Joanna Jarju, your Union Jackass.
Mine is CCHQ, specifically the people who run the Conservatives press office, for making an X account, calling it Tax Checks, which has got a verified tick. as if it's an impartial verification account. So it's basically their own little spin account that they've got their own logo, pretending as if they're actually giving people facts after the debates, when really all they're doing is just promoting themselves and passing it off as something else.
They did it last election as well.
Yeah, they did it in 2019.
Alex Armstrong, you're a union jackass.
Mine's honorary because it's an Brit, but it's Jill Biden, because she's constantly rolling her husband out, who is clearly quite ill, and should be telling him to step down and do the right thing for America, but also do the right thing for himself, because he's obviously in ailing health.
Turn against her husband, that's not...
No, but do the right thing for your husband, for goodness sake. Come on, woman.
No, love him.
No, but love would be the greatest act, to say to him, stand down, you're ill, Joe. You're ill.
No, you don't.
Maybe she's saying that to him behind the scenes, but she's got to support. It's her husband of over God knows how many years.
I don't think he's making any decisions anyway, guys. I think she's making them all. I think she's enjoying being president, frankly.
I think it might actually be Barack Obama or somebody else.
Yeah, you are, Michelle.
Or Michelle,
yeah.
who may well take over.
Yeah.
Well, I've got to say, the union jackass has got to be Thames Water, the water companies. Absolutely despicable, absolutely awful, and I'm disgusted by the fact that a lot of these water companies, they're not alone in it, are getting away with bilging out a load of sewage just because it's rained a bit too much, and then they just chuck it into the sea, into the water. I don't know why they think they're going to get away with it, but they shouldn't. So I think it's a double win for you, John.
It is, first time.
Yeah.
Please.
Get him a night
Thank you so much to my brilliant panel, John Sargent, Joanna Jaju, and also Alexander Armstrong. Thank you so much. And, of course, thank you to you for your company. Listen, I'm back tomorrow, actually, at 3 o'clock for my show. Stay tuned. Up next, it's time for Headliners after your weather. Good night.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Good evening to you. Tomorrow, bit of a three-way split with our weather. Bright and breezy across Scotland with a few showers, mostly fine and sunny across East Anglia and the southeast. But in between, this weather system is creeping towards us. Not a particularly potent one, but it will bring cloud and some outbreaks of rain. That's starting to move across the Republic of Ireland at the moment and spreading towards Wales and southern parts of Northern Ireland by dawn. Still a few showers across the far north and west of Scotland. Still quite breezy here as well, but elsewhere the wind's pretty light with some clearer skies. Temperatures will dip down to single figures, but it's actually turning quite cloudy here, but that will keep the cloudy temperatures up across Wales and northwest England through the early hours. The cloud will increase a little bit across southwest England too, so a grey start here for some, maybe the odd shower, but for much of East Anglia and the southeast, fine and sunny, and for a good part of Scotland and Northern Ireland, certainly the north of Northern Ireland, a fine start to Saturday, some decent spells of sunshine. Still quite breezy across the far north, and still plenty of showers packing in across Caithness, Sutherland, the Western Isles and the Northern Isles. They'll keep going for much of the day, but a good chunk of Scotland will be dry. This cloud and rain, though, likely to stick around. Not much rain, I suspect, getting to the east of the Pennines, but still predominantly cloudy here. Dull and damp on some of those coasts across northwest England, north and west Wales throughout. But brighter skies further south and with a bit of sunshine. 25 degrees is possible across the southeast. Scotland and Northern Ireland in the high teens, but with a bit of sunshine. It shouldn't feel too bad because the winds will be lighter tomorrow compared to today. Mostly.
This election night, we're putting on a party.
And you are invited.
We'll be here with you.
Following all the twists and turns.
As well as all the live reaction from our election night watch party.
With our GB News lineup.
And as morning breaks, we'll be here with breakfast from 6 a.m.
As it becomes clear who the winners and the losers really are.
Vote 2024.
Thursday, the 4th of July.
Only on GB News.
Britain's election channel. Congratulations to the GB News winners at this year's Trick Awards.
And the winner of Interview of the Year is... Alistair Stewart reveals his heartbreaking diagnosis to Camilla Tory.
And the winner is GB News Breakfast. And the winner is Nigel Farage.
And thank you to you, our GB News viewers and listeners, for making us the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
We've been talking about the White House is concerned with playing down concerns about the health of President Biden, who's apparently taken to freezing during public events. Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni was seen herding the president back into a photo with world leaders after he shuffled aimlessly away from the group. In the last few days, videos and images of the president freezing at a fundraising event went viral, but the White House stated that they were deceptively edited cheap fakes. With me now, again, is my panel, the historian broadcaster Tessa Dunlop and the associate comment editor of The Telegraph, Mutaz Ahmed. Mutaz, I mean, you are a journalist. What about this idea that in some way the images could be fake?
They could be fake, and some of them will be fake. But the reason these AI images or AI videos or weirdly edited videos are a problem for the White House is that people have seen enough of Biden freezing in real life.
It's not going away, this one. It's perception versus reality, but as Mustafa said, it doesn't matter because it's now become Biden's reality, which is bushfighting, these questions about his ability connected to his age. I don't understand where you go from here. He's got a vice president who isn't presidential material, who I think polls worse than he does, despite these, you would call them ageist. In many ways, it's about his competence, isn't it?
It can make a big difference when the president whose competence, mental competence, is under question, is running on the matter of competence itself. They're trying to paint Trump as being incompetent, as being not presidential, as being unable to lead, while they have a candidate who struggles to get off the stage. Yeah. That's the issue for them. And it's not really about age. He's not much older than Trump, as you say. It's about the appearance of age.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good evening. It's exactly 11 o'clock. I'm Cameron Walker in the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister says Nigel Farage has questions to answer after a video emerged of a campaigner making racist comments. Andrew Parker was seen making a series of offensive remarks about Rishi Sunak. He's now apologised but insists he was goaded into making them. Rishi Sunak says it's part of a broader pattern of behaviour. Well, tonight, Nigel Farage has reiterated the comments have no place in his party and has doubled down on his claims the secretly recorded video is a setup. A Channel 4 spokesperson says they strongly stand by what they called rigorous and duly impartial journalism. And to the US now, US President Joe Biden says he intends to win the election in his first public event since his struggle during the first televised debates last night. He's just been speaking in the last few hours at a rally in North Carolina where Democrats are hoping to win the state back from the Republicans this November. He claims America itself is at stake and accused former US President Donald Trump of repeatedly lying and said he has the morals of an alley cat. After his own shaky performance during the debate last night, President Biden directly addressed the limits of his old age.
I don't walk as easy as I used to. I don't speak as smoothly as I used to. I don't debate as well as I used to. But I know what I do know. I know how to tell the truth. I know right from wrong. And I know how to do this job. I know how to get things done. And I know, like millions of Americans know, when you get knocked down, you get back up.
But former US President Donald Trump has been speaking at a rally in Virginia tonight. He reacted to Joe Biden's performance at last night's debate.
He's grossly incompetent. You know, they keep saying old. I know people that are much older than him that are doing unbelievable things. It's not his age, it's his competence. He's not respected anywhere in the world. Our country is being laughed at all over the world.
Police are concerned for the welfare of a man who's been missing for just over a week. 18-year-old Dylan Duffy from Oldham was last seen boarding a train from Manchester Piccadilly to London Euston on the 18th of June. CCTV has captured him leaving the station that evening. He was last seen wearing a black tracksuit and a grey baseball cap and a backpack. And a house in Los Angeles, where Marilyn Monroe lived and tragically died, has been saved from demolition. The couple who's bought the property, who live in a neighbouring one, plans to replace the building with an extension. The City Council has now declared it a historic landmark, scuppering the extension plans, but the couple reportedly have no plans to put it up for sale and say they'll appeal the decision. It was the only house ever owned by the Hollywood icon. She lived there for 6 months until her death in 1962. Well, those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More on our website, gbnews.com. Now it's time for Headliners.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Nick Dixon, taking you through tomorrow's top stories for the next hour, and I'm joined by Headliners' new boy, Adam Kumas.
Hello.
There he is, looking good. And old boy, because like the protagonist of the martial arts movie of that name, he lives for revenge. It's Lewis Schaefer, looking very like the cheekbones.
Very good for an old boy.
An old boy, yeah. Have you ever seen that movie? Did anyone get that reference?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was worried that was a bit obscure.
Yeah.
The guy that kills everyone.
I didn't get it.
No, you didn't get it. But you're just like Biden. We're just happy you're here, functioning, sitting still.
It's my wife right there. She's telling me what to do.
Yeah, we always have Lewis's wife telling him how to do it. All right, that's the banter out of the way. It went very smoothly. I thought, let's have a quick look at the front pages. So the Daily Mail has Boris, Britain can still swerve Starmageddon. Very, very Boris, that one. The Telegraph, Biden is given 1 week to stand down. The Times, Badenoch, voters must see through Farage act. The Mirror, I could hear Jay slipping on rocks. The Express, Vishy, my hurt and anger at daughters hearing racist slur. And finally, the Daily Star, man baby beats up doddery old bloke on live TV. That's how the show's going to go tonight as well. And those are your front pages. So let's do the Telegraph. And following a disastrous presidential debate, even Joe Biden's biggest supporters are admitting he should be shown the door. Though, to be fair, he always needs to be shown the door. Lewis.
He is. He's always shown the door. His wife is showing him the door. He's not even the president. Biden given 1 week to stand down. This is in the Daily Telegraph. Who is asking him? Who's giving him 1 week? It's not like in Britain where there's a group that can give the guy 1 week to do something. It's just one guy who said he's got a week to go.
Yes, it's one congressman just saying, I think the president has 1 week to prove he's not dead. And it's hard to know if he meant literally or metaphorically.
The truth is